Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes!
Do you remember how nobody could hear the Beatles when they performed live concerts?
Yeah, they were the loudest band in the world, yet nobody could hear them.
Not only that, but the Beatles couldn't hear anything either.
Right. I mean, it's just this massive, fascinating engineering failure. You've got four guys playing to, tens of thousands of people,
Yeah.
but they're armed with gear that it was basically built for a local dance hall.
Well, yeah, like back in those early Hamburg days, George is plugging into that tiny Selmer True Voice combo amp. And Paul just has this super modest bass rig.
Right. They're pushing just enough air to be heard over people, like clinking glasses in a basement pub.
Right, not 50,000 screaming teenagers.
Exactly. And that whole dynamic completely fractures in 1961. That's when they secure their endorsement deal with Vox.
Oh, right, the Vox deal.
Yeah, so suddenly they have the Vox AC-15 and eventually the iconic AC-30. I mean, the AC-30 pushed 30 watts through twin 12-inch Celestion Blue speakers.
Which was huge for them at the time.
Oh, massive. And those specific speakers handled high frequencies in a way that produced this chiming, slightly compressed top-end tone.
That basically defined the entire sound of the British invasion.
You got it. And what's wild is how much that gear cost back then.
Yeah.
In the UK, an AC-30 was about 87 pounds.
Which, I mean, is what, like 3 or 4 months' wages for the average worker back then?
Yeah, approaching $2,600 US today. But the band, they never paid a single penny for them.
Because of the endorsement, right.
Exactly. Vox just handed them over. They knew that having the biggest band on Earth visibly playing their cabinets on TV was, priceless marketing.
Sure, but then you fast forward to 1965, and a 30-watt amp just isn't cutting it for American baseball stadiums.
Not at all. Vox had to totally scramble. They built these custom 100-watt amplifiers, the AC-100s, in these massive foundation-based cabinets for McCartney.
Just trying to push enough air across a literal stadium field.
Yeah, exactly.
But mathematically, they were completely doomed anyway. Like, when they stepped out at Shea Stadium in August of 65, the ambient crowd noise was hitting, 110 decibels?
Yeah, easily 110.
So trying to play a nuanced musical set in that environment is like trying to have a polite conversation while your friend is running a chainsaw right next to your ear.
That is the perfect analogy, because those massive custom Vox amps sitting behind them were maxing out at around 105, maybe 108 decibels.
Wow. So the crowd is literally louder.
Quite literally generating more acoustic energy than the amplifiers.
And the venue's PA system didn't help the audience at all, did it?
Oh, no. The vocals were just routed through the stadium's existing PA infrastructure, like the exact same horn speakers used by the baseball announcer.
Oh, man. So just those pure mid-range frequencies.
Right. Built exclusively for a human voice saying, "Now batting." They just physically couldn't reproduce the low end of Paul's bass or, the dynamic crash of Ringo's cymbals.
So if you bought a ticket and sat up in the rafters, you just heard this deafening crowd noise layered over a distant, muddy wash of sound.
Yeah, which created this incredibly disorienting experience for the band, too. Paul McCartney famously described playing at Shea as existing in a sensory void.
The sensory void.
Yeah, he couldn't hear the notes at all. He said he was reduced to just watching his fingers vibrate against the bass strings to confirm he was actually playing.
That is insane, just relying on the vibration.
I know. John Lennon even admitted years later they had absolutely no idea what they were doing up there, and George Harrison was just characteristically blunt about it.
What do you say?
He said musical quality became completely irrelevant because nobody could hear a mistake anyway.
Which is hilarious, but also kind of brutal for Ringo. I mean, he's the drummer.
Right, he's the rhythmic engine of the band.
Mm-hmm.
But he can't hear the guitars, and he can't hear the vocals.
So what did he do?
He literally had to watch his bandmates' backsides just to see them moving. He was timing his drum strikes to the physical sway of their bodies.
Wow. So it went from an audio act to just a purely visual event.
Absolutely.
I mean, 1,400 shows of that absolute acoustic assault. It makes complete sense why they retreated to the recording studio in 1966.
Oh, the studio was a sanctuary.
Yeah.
When they went in to record Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, they were finally in an environment where they could actually control the monitors.
Right. Headphone levels could be isolated. They could actually hear themselves think.
Exactly. And the stark difference between that 65 stadium stage and like a modern arena tour really comes down to the total absence of a front-of-house mixing system back then.
Yeah, there was no sound technician sitting out in the middle of the crowd adjusting the levels.
Right. Today, you walk into a stadium and the first thing you see are those massive line array systems hanging from the ceiling.
Instead of one giant speaker trying to blast sound horizontally?
Exactly. A line array is a vertical stack of speaker modules. By stacking them and slightly curving the array, they push sound waves in this targeted cylindrical shape.
So the volume doesn't just drop off immediately after the first few rows.
Spot on. It delivers a perfectly balanced mix to every single seat.
And they use delay towers throughout the venue now, too.
Yes, because sound waves travel relatively slowly, roughly 1,000 feet per second. So a delay tower strategically holds back the audio signal by just a fraction of a second.
Ah, so the sound from the main stage and the sound from the tower hit the person in the very back row at the exact same millisecond.
You got it. It stops the stadium from turning into a massive echo chamber. And that is all managed by digital signal processing, or DSP.
Right.
A modern audio engineer can just run an algorithm to analyze the acoustic reflections of a cavernous arena and then use DSP to invert specific frequencies. It effectively cancels out echoes before they even reach the speakers.
It is a level of precision that would have looked like pure witchcraft to anyone working in 1965.
Oh, completely.
And the technology on the stage itself has transformed just as much, right? Because for a long time, performers just relied on wedge speakers.
Yeah, those heavy angled fold-back monitors sitting on the stage floor, just blasting straight up at the artist's face at 110 decibels so they can hear over the drums.
But now, those are largely a thing of the past for top-tier acts. Now we have in-ear monitors.
Yeah, which are basically like high-end earplugs. They physically block out the ambient stage noise, while a wireless receiver delivers a super-specific controlled mix directly into the ear canal.
So the performer chooses exactly what they want. If Paul McCartney had modern tech in the 60s, he could dial up his own bass, turn down Ringo's cymbals, and adjust John's vocal reverb to his exact taste.
All at a completely safe volume.
Okay, so with all this incredible digital signal processing and precision tech, we fixed the problem, right? Nobody's going deaf anymore.
Well, no, not at all, actually.
Right, really?
Yeah, I mean, to understand why, you have to look at why bands in the 60s didn't just wear earplugs to protect themselves in the first place.
I guess the tech wasn't there.
Right. The only hearing protection they had were crude wax or foam plugs that indiscriminately cut all frequencies. If you put them in, they muffled the high and midtones.
Making it completely impossible to hear the nuance of your own instrument.
Exactly. So nobody wore them.
And an entire generation of rock royalty paid the price. I mean, Paul McCartney has spoken pretty openly about his significant hearing loss in his left ear.
And his ongoing battle with tinnitus, yeah. Pete Towns of The Who is another major casualty.
Oh, for sure.
He attributes his severe tinnitus and significant hearing loss to decades of absolute maximum stage volume. He's partially deaf now.
The list of casualties is staggering. Roger Daltrey, Eric Clapton, Sting, Ozzy Osbourne, Ted Nugent, Neil Young, they've all spoken about significant hearing damage.
And this unseen cost still haunts modern musicians today. In-ear monitors haven't totally fixed the crisis, because protection is still highly inconsistent.
Especially for amateur or semi-professional artists who just can't afford custom wireless rigs.
Exactly. And drummers face the highest occupational hazard. They're sitting completely surrounded by crashing cymbals and booming snares, bearing the absolute brunt of the physical acoustic energy.
Oh, that reminds me of that 2019 film, Sound of Metal.
Yes. Riz Ahmed plays Ruben, a drummer whose hearing just deteriorates rapidly during a tour.
It perfectly strips away the glamour and confronts the terrifying biological reality of hearing loss.
It really does. It puts a very contemporary face on an issue that silently devastates musicians and the touring crews who set up these massive shows every single night.
Which brings us to the ultimate irony of modern live music.
The audience is still suffering.
Yeah. The overall volume of today's live music has increased dramatically compared to the 60s, but because the sound is so incredibly clear, we don't realize the damage we're taking.
Modern line array speakers are continuously pumping out 110 to 120 decibels. Yeah. And whether a sound wave carries a wall of distorted static or a perfectly mixed, crystal clear bass note, it still carries intense physical kinetic energy.
Right.
When that energy hits 120 decibels, it physically flattens the microscopic hair cells inside your cochlea.
At Shea Stadium, the crowds were enduring 110 decibels, but nobody could hear anything but the din. The distortion and the screaming kind of masked the music.
But today's audiences can hear absolutely everything perfectly. Every vocal run, every hi-hat.
But that clarity is delivered at a bone-rattling intensity that creates irreversible long-term costs after just minutes of exposure. We basically traded the muddy sensory void of Shea Stadium for crystal-clear acoustic devastation.
We really did.
So next time you're standing in front of a giant speaker stack, marveling at how crisp the high notes sound, you might want to think about what that crystal clarity is actually doing to your ear.
Cass, we'll do it again tomorrow.
I will absolutely be here until next time.
When you listen.
Your mind conducts its own symphony.